So here we have these Palisade interlocking wall tiles. Now these tiles are DIY friendly and they're super simple to install. In this video I'm going to give you a full overview of the tile, then I'll give you some quick tips and tricks for installing them, and then I'll go over the pros and cons I noticed when installing them in this bathroom and in this bathroom. Alright, so there's a few different sizes and color options to choose from, but the ones I'm showing here are the 25.6 inch by 14.8 inch, and they're a little over 3/16 inches thick. And these are the ash and slate style. This size comes in packs of 8 in these cardboard boxes, which will cover about 21 square foot. And I recommend ordering 10 to 15% extra to allow for mistakes and all the cutoff pieces that you won't be able to use, just like these here. Anyway, this tile is made from rigid PVC with a photorealistic tile print and then a protection layer on top. Each tile has a unique unrepeated print that creates a more realistic look. Along the edges are these interlocking tongue and groove connections, which are very similar to laminate or LVP flooring. But it is important to mention that these should not be used on floors because they don't have the adequate protection layer for foot traffic. Anyway, they just click together like this, and you can see when they're put together they form an 1/8 inch grout joint. You can install them vertically or horizontally, and if you want to mismatch the tiles with a different color, you can, as long as they're the same dimensions. Oh, and there's also a trim option for the corners, but I opted to go without. You can use these wherever you want, but some common places are for a kitchen backsplash, in a laundry room, or in a bathroom. And the tiles themselves are waterproof, but the joints are not, so you have to use some sealant in the joints to make them 100% waterproof. And once you do that, you can use them in a shower. And if you're doing this in a shower, although it's not completely necessary, they still recommend you waterproof the walls before you put on the tile. I used Go Board and RedGuard just to be completely sure that I wouldn't have any issues. As to the glue and sealants you'll need, one standard 10-ounce tube of adhesive will cover about 4 tiles, so you'll need about 2 tubes per box. Here's a quick look at the approved adhesives, and here's what I use. Now, as I mentioned before, if you're using this in a wet environment, you'll need sealant for the joints. 1 tube of sealant will cover about 6 to 9 tiles, depending on how perfectly you can apply it. About 1 per box was enough for me. Also, for both the glue and sealant, I would recommend getting at least 15% extra. Alright, so these were pretty simple to install once I got the hang of it. I think this bathroom took about 2 days, or maybe a total of 12 to 14 hours for me to install them by myself. They're really easy to cut. You can use a utility knife and a straight edge. Just cut your line a couple of times and then snap it at that line. And sometimes it helps to snap it off at the end of a table or board. And if you're going to see this cut, then I recommend using a sanding block to sand a chamfer on the cut edge. Another way to cut this is to use a table saw, or for curved or other irregular cuts, I like to use a jigsaw. And of course you can use a drill to drill holes for pipes and other plumbing. When you apply the glue, you'll put a 1/4 inch bead around the perimeter and then make a zigzag pattern. And if you're using the sealant, you'll squeeze an 1/8 inch bead into the tongue and groove joint. Putting the sealant in the joints can be a bit difficult, and I usually end up making a little bit of a mess, so if there's any squeeze out, just take a wet paper towel and wipe it off. Alright, so now that you know a little bit more about these tiles and how they work, let me tell you what I like and dislike about the tiles. First off, if you do seal the joints like I just mentioned and it squeezes out, there's really no good way that I know of to clean off all the silicone. And once the silicone dries, you can notice it's much shinier than the tile itself. If this look really bothers you, I've found that it's possible to scrape it off with your fingernail, but that's just a lot of extra work. The next thing is that it's not quite as durable as tile when it comes to scratching. You have to remember that it is just plastic, so it's relatively easy to scratch with a piece of metal or something else that's sharp. And as of now, they don't sell any paint markers that fix those scratches. That being said though, you're really not going to scratch these with normal use, and I've had this tile installed for quite a few months now, and I haven't noticed any scratches. Now, what I really like about these tiles are how simple and easy they are to cut and install. Like I said before, probably took me about 12 hours to put this whole bathroom together. You also don't need any special tools to put it together. All you really need is a caulking gun, a knife, and a drill. And these tiles are a lot more forgiving than something like ceramic tile, because even if your walls aren't perfectly flat, these will easily bend and fit your uneven walls. Of course, I definitely recommend straightening out your walls before you put this tile on, but if you don't, or somehow you forget, then it's not a problem with these. Anyway, apart from the sealant, they're really not that messy, and once installed, they're really easy to clean. Now, their tile color options aren't quite as wide as regular tile, but they do still have quite a few different options. And for a darker color, I really like this ash and slate that I used in here. So yeah, overall, I'm really happy with this Palisade tile. It's super easy to install and looks great.